morning and welcome to Rising on this fateful Wednesday, perhaps. I'm joined again by Max Burns. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. It is a busy, busy day, so let's dive in.
Yes, the end is nigh, perhaps. The floodgates opening, Democrats publicly turning on President Joe Biden. 5 days after his debate, Texas Representative Lloyd Doggett has now become the first Democrat to call for Biden to step aside. Doggett said, quote, "Too much is at stake to risk a Trump victory. I am hopeful that he, Biden, will make the painful and difficult decision to withdraw. Respectfully, I call on him to do so." MSNBC analyst and former Housing and Urban Development Secretary Julian Castro followed suit, saying, quote, "Defeating Donald Trump is too important for Democrats to do nothing. With the understanding that the stakes are so high, President Biden should make the difficult decision to withdraw from the race." Castro added in a separate tweet that, quote, "President Biden should fulfill his promise to be a bridge to the next generation of leadership and allow a stronger Democratic candidate to prevent a disastrous second Trump term."
Other Democrats have yet to go that far, but alarm bells are still ringing over on Capitol Hill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi told MSNBC, quote, "It's a legitimate question to say, is this an episode or is this a condition?" Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse expressed similar concerns. Let's watch.
You obviously are in touch with your colleagues and many of those folks. What are the conversations like, to the extent you're willing to characterize them right now?
Well, I think people want to make sure that this is a campaign that's ready to go and win, that the president and his team are being candid with us about his condition, that this was a real anomaly and not just the way he is these days, and that, they've got a plan to win.
And here's freshman Congresswoman Marie Gluesenkamp-Perez.
The truth, I think, is that Biden is going to lose to Trump. I know that's difficult, but I think the damage has been done by that debate.
And it gets worse. Democratic Congressman Jared Golden similarly wrote an op-ed for the Bangor Daily News titled, quote, "Donald Trump is going to win the election and democracy will be just fine." Even for former President Barack Obama, he's now privately expressing to allies, quote, "Biden's already tough path to re-election grew more challenging after his shaky debate performance on Thursday." That's according to new reporting from the Washington Post. The Post also reported that Senator Joe Manchin had planned to break with Biden on Sunday, but was dissuaded from doing that by senior Democrats. And take a listen to what CNN is now reporting.
But other party leaders we talked to are already floating the idea of opening it up to all contenders, having, let's call it a 5-week speed dating primary, maybe having debates between now and the convention, and then leaving it up to the convention. Their number one concern, who can beat Donald Trump, Anderson?
So as we said, the dam is breaking. Democrats, including prominent Democrat Julian Castro, now saying that he should step aside. I think we're expecting to see more of that in the coming days. We're going into this kind of holiday-ish weekend stretch where I know a lot of people in the political media world are at this point expecting him to drop out. I still think that's going to be a pretty tall order because Joe Biden himself has to be willing to do it. He has to want to step aside, and we're seeing no indication. He is, in a bunker with his family, all encouraging him to fight to the last man, Hunter Biden, Jill Biden. And so I'm hesitant to say that it's going to be anything other than that, but certainly the pressure is mounting. You were just telling me before we started filming that you've been talking to some Democrats on the Hill. What are they telling you?
Yeah, it is remarkable how much the conversation has shifted. I was on the Hill this morning talking to a variety of Democrats, not just raging lefties, who've described the White House as being very standoffish about this, not communicative. One said that the excuses that have sort of spiraled about Biden's performance are now verging on what they called paranoia. And there's reason to believe that. I mean, we've seen now that they've claimed Biden had a cold, that he was tired from a foreign trip that he arrived home from 12 days before the debate. And there's a growing understanding here that the White House is not doing enough, that Biden thinking he can stand above this and wait for tempers to cool is a misreading of the situation, and that if he doesn't start to mollify these Democrats, events could start moving without him.
Yeah, I mean, just tactically, if he was sick and tired, going through with this debate was a horrible idea. They should have said he has COVID and we got to do it next week or something. I mean, that would have been less damaging, clearly, than what actually took place. I think the dam breaking phenomenon has been exacerbated. The dam is breaking harder because of how hidden it was from the public, or how stigmatized you were for asking questions about his health, his age, his mental acuity. You know, the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre, and so many others, you know, were slamming it in the 10 days before the debate, slamming the idea that those videos showing him kind of confused and out of touch and having to be led away in a couple contexts, you know, were not just misleading or you needed to watch the full clips, but you know, she called them deep fakes. She said they were manipulated. You know, they were. There's been a concerted effort by Team Biden, helped by many in the press and in the mainstream media, to stigmatize questions about the mental acuity. Now that is so undeniable, and no one in the media is trying to deny it anymore. I think frankly, people in the mainstream media, people at CNN and MSNBC, feel a little like they've been caught flat-footed, like they were fed this narrative that they, in some cases, regurgitated, that is now, they're not trying to pretend that's still true. They know it, and I think they feel duped, or that they took part in this farce and are turning on Team Biden because of it.
Yeah, that's right. And now the White House is turning on those media outlets as well.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the sticking points for Democrats I spoke to is the fact that this is not a new development. It's something that has existed and voters have been able to see for a while. But there's been this cognitive dissonance around it. And now the message is, quite frankly, an almost Trump level of conspiratorial. They're saying, well, the media is working against Joe Biden. The pollsters are working against Joe Biden. The people who lit the debate were working against Joe Biden. And now any Democrat who expresses concern is working against Joe Biden. I mean, that may make the White House feel better, but it certainly isn't persuading skeptical Democrats that they fully understand just how concerning this is from an optics perspective.
Yeah, and that line of argument is just so clearly wrong. The concern is based on the fact, look, I believe that many Democrats absolutely want to beat Donald Trump, don't want him to be president again, and they are making the not at all unreasonable conclusion, in fact, a well-founded conclusion based on evidence and data, that Joe Biden will not defeat Donald Trump in November, that he already had a difficult path to doing so. He was slightly the underdog, or maybe it was about even at some point, and then it was slipping away from him, and because of that debate performance, it's now very far beyond him to do so, and they don't want that to happen, although there's some people like Jared Golden saying, it's just going to happen and we're going to deal with it. It's not too late to try something else, but you know, Biden himself has, I think, I guess he has the incentive to stay in it. He doesn't want to give it up. His family's telling him to keep going for it. The best time, obviously, to switch him out would have been just for him to not announce that he's not going to run for re-election a year and a half ago.
Absolutely.
And that would have been fine. And you know, the team behind him, or maybe it's the family who pushed him to this point, that is seeming like a very, very, very bad move for Democrats.
It is, and it puts Democrats in a bind because now they're essentially panicking about the wrong thing. The polls that have come out show that Biden's fallen about 2 points in the swing states. And you can ask Barack Obama, you can ask Donald Trump in 2016, being 2 points down in June is not indicative of anything. The bigger problem is now Biden is clearly losing the confidence of Democratic leaders.
Yeah.
And that's a bigger problem for him, because if he expects Democrats to come to the White House and engage him on his terms on this, he has misread the situation. He needs to show his vitality and understanding of the situation, not just to the American people in speeches, but now he needs to convince Nancy Pelosi, who's 84 and has some understanding of what it is to be an older person in politics. So it's very interesting she's suddenly speaking out here.
Yeah, although I also saw on her TV saying, you know who's the one who really has dementia? It's Donald Trump, which is a very quintessential Nancy Pelosi. Speaking of Trump, you know, I've noticed he's been eerily quiet during all this. This man can exercise self-discipline when he really needs to, and it's advantageous for him to do so. Obviously, I think he did a really good job during the debate. It wasn't just that Biden performed so badly; it's that Trump was impressive. He's impressively quiet now. I don't know. He read The Art of War or something, or Napoleon. You know, when your enemy is making a mistake, just let him. Shut up. Don't do anything about it. That's what's happening. And it actually reminds me of how Trump handled the Brett Kavanaugh accusations, where he was also very quiet and he just kind of let it play out and it went through. Which also, I should say, again, in the terms of Biden getting off the ticket, like I fully expected when Trump was running for president and the Access Hollywood tape broke, and every prominent Republicans, all the past Republican candidates, the leaders of the party, they all denounced Trump. Many of them said they wouldn't be voting for him. They wanted him to drop out. I mean, by then it was post-convention. It was so late. It would have been just resigning the election at that point. But they still called for him to do it. He stayed in the race, and then he won. So there is a precedent for extreme pressure to drop out on a candidate just not working, and the candidate saying, you know what? Nope, you can't make me. No one can make him. No one can make him. That is the fundamental thing people watching have to understand. I always hear this. They are going to switch him out. They won't let him. There is no they. The they is Joe Biden and his family. If he has to take the crown off his head, set it on the seat, and ride off into the sunset. He has to willingly take that action, and maybe he can be convinced to do it, but it's not happening without his assent. And I'm not seeing evidence that he's being persuaded by the people he's listening to close to him that he should get off the ticket.
Well, I do want to push back on this sort of idea that Donald Trump was impressive at the debate. It's easy to seem impressive when you just lie. I mean, by some counts, 27 individual provable lies. I mean, that's not impressive. That's just running the kitchen sink against someone who can't effectively respond to you. But I agree that his silence is quite shocking. It reminds me of the scene in Happy Gilmore where Happy learns how to putt, and suddenly everyone doesn't know what to do. The fact that Donald Trump, I mean, can you imagine him remaining this quiet on this in 2016 had this happened? I can't. And that's a really worrying thing because it shows that he's starting to listen to advisors. And if that's what's going to happen here, it's going to be an even more challenging race.
The debate was reminiscent of Happy Gilmore in many ways.
Yes.
And they started, it was very Happy and Shooter McGavin
there was
started
a
talking
golf
about
discussion too.
whose golf swing is more impressive. Look, Trump, is a serial exaggerator of certain facts, and that definitely
We can just call them lies.
Came through at the debate on the extent of immigrant crime and a lot of other subjects. Biden was totally unable to rebut it given his state.
Yeah, and that's truly unfortunate because some of those lies were incredibly obvious, and core parts of Biden's campaign messaging is rebutting those lies. If he's not an effective messenger for that, maybe these Democrats have a point.
I mean, it's hard to be in the position of trying to say, we still have, this is the problem the incumbent always faces. Things have improved, we still have challenges. The challenger can say, well, here are all the things that are still wrong with the country. Even if some of them are exaggerations. Crime did spike after the pandemic, and it's thankfully come down in a lot of places, although it's stayed high. It's in Washington, D.C., it stayed extremely high. Washington, D.C. is the city under the federal government's thumb the most, and crime is worst here.
The city Donald Trump promised to clean up, and certainly hasn't been the case.
So Biden, with the economy, with inflation still being higher than a lot of Americans want, it's hard for the incumbent to say, well, I'm trying to tell you things are so much better now, but that's not the lived experience of so many people. So it's hard to acknowledge that people are suffering and that things could be better while still defending what you've done to improve things when you're not able to think as clearly as he was.
No, it's absolutely true.
All right, we will be back with certainly more discussion of this topic. We'll talk about the rise of Kamala Harris coming up. Stay tuned for more Rising.